My name is Monica Blauner. I will be president of the California Society for Clinical Social Work starting July 1st. I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about the California Society for Clinical Social Work. First of all, we want to welcome you here for this presentation called the BBS Speaks, Everything You Wanted to Know About Becoming an LCSW. We are a statewide organization with districts around the state. Each district has events where we provide continuing education credits. On your seat are flyers that tell you about the society and also have a list of some of the topics that LA and San Fernando Valley have given over the past year. And we have one more coming up in May on EMDR in LA. The mission of the California Society for Clinical Social Work is to promote and support the profession of clinical social work. We were formed in the late 1960s, and our members were instrumental in going to Sacramento to lobby for clinical social workers to become licensed. It was also a similar group of social workers from the society that also lobbied in Sacramento for social workers to have parity with psychologists and psychiatrists, allowing clinical social workers to bill insurance and to be in private practice. They then formed the educational arm, which is now the Sanville Institute. So some of the things that we offer as a professional organization, in addition to continuing education events, we also offer workshops. We do a law and ethics workshop, which you're going to need every 2 years after you get licensed, and as well as workshops on other topics, couples therapy or substance abuse, half-day, whole-day workshops. And as a member, the CEUs at the district events are free, and you get a reduced rate for the workshops. In addition, we have a mentorship program, which I'm very proud of. It's very active. You can be matched up with an individual senior member of the society. And we also have mentoring groups. For example, I'm running one on people interested in starting or building a private practice. We're also starting a support group for those who are job seeking and going through the licensing process. So the flyers are also on your seats for that. We also have started because we understand that finding a clinical supervisor can be one of the most difficult things in getting hours. So we have started, just as a resource list, a list of society members who provide supervision for hours, whether it's in agencies or private practice. And as a member, you also have access to that list, again, free of charge. We also have a very active listserv, which is a great way to connect with people around the state for resources and various kinds of questions. For example, I just asked for HIPAA-compliant video conferencing and got a whole bunch of recommendations. What we are primarily is a professional community. So it's a place to come together, to meet people who are in the profession with you, to support each other, for you to be able to consult with. And the more involved you get, the more benefit you get, because the more you get to know people and make friends. In real estate, they say, for those of you who are familiar, there are 3 things that are most important. What are they?
Location, location, location.
Location, location, location. When you're looking for supervision, internships at jobs, or private practice referrals, what are the 3 things that are most important? Networking, networking, networking. So this is a great place to do that. And our members are both in agencies and in private practice.
I am Kim Madsen. I am the Executive Officer of the Board of Behavioral Sciences, that scary entity you guys all bear. So I've been the executive officer since 2010. I am not a clinical social worker. I'm not a marriage and family therapist. I am not a licensed educational psychologist, nor am I a professional clinical counselor. So but I am an administrator, and that's my function of the board. Been doing that, like I said, since 2010, so about 7 years. Prior to that, I spent about 10 to 12 years doing criminal background checks, investigating consumer complaints for the state within the Board of Pharmacy, and then the California Department of Public Health. So, I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And they kept talking to my checkbook, and I said, sure. With that, how many of you are students? Just about everybody. How many are already registrants? Yay. Okay, and licensees? Okay, so okay, good, mix. Okay, so for those that are already registrants, you already have been through part of the process. And I hope by the end of today's presentation, I have removed a little fear of the BBS from you, because we really are nice people. Honestly, we're not out to get you. So for the students, you are either nearing the end of your education or in the middle of it, but one of the qualifications in the state of California, as in the other 49 states, is that you must have a qualifying master's degree program. What that means is that your educational program has to be certified by the social work education group. So most of you probably already know that you're in a program that qualifies for that. So once you graduate, you have your graduation party, it's now time to think about the next steps, and that would be to register with the BBS as an associate social worker. And then once you get that registration, you'll begin earning your post-degree hours. New for most of you is now that you have to take the clinical or the California Law and Ethics exam. That's a new requirement that became effective 2016, but not too hard. It's about a 50-question test, and we have a pretty high pass rate right now. Then after you've earned your hours, you've passed the Law and Ethics, you can apply for the clinical exam. Good news for all of you now is it is the national exam, so that makes your license a little more portable. So that's kind of a nice benefit of waiting and not taking the test just yet. Once you pass the clinical exam, you need to apply for your initial licensure, and you can receive your LCSW and your license. Congratulations. Sounds really easy, right? That was easy. So qualifying master degree programs. I've listed some of the schools down in the Southern California area that we know have that degree program. USC is a big one, San Diego, Loma Linda, Azusa Pacific, so there's just a few of those there. And then Northridge is another one, so those are some. Yay. Okay, so the registration process is really pretty straightforward. You need two or three things. First, you need to complete the registration form. You need to have your fingerprints on file with us, and I need a transcript from your school. And once we have all those three items, then we'll issue a registration. We prefer complete registration packets. It's a benefit to you. It's easier for us. We only need to look at your packet once, but that's not possible for you for a variety of reasons. That's fine. We need the basic one-page application. It's important that you sign it. That's a big deal. And it has basic information, your name, your address. We're collecting email addresses, which is a huge benefit to you, because that's how you're going to get notified about your exam, not your clinical exam, but your law and ethics. Our testing vendor, PSI, will communicate to you via email. So include your email. A 2x2 passport photo should be attached. We have received glamour shots. Not recommending them, but it doesn't need to be that extravagant. Costco does it. Copy of the live scan form to demonstrate that you completed the live scan. And all of these forms are on our website at bbs.ca.gov. And when you pull up the website, there's tabs. One of the tabs says forms/pubs. That's where you're going to want to go to get your forms. We also want your school transcripts. They need to be official, which means we need to receive them in a sealed envelope. And the qualifying degree program must be posted. So we get transcripts that say that they were issued to the student. No, that'll hold you up, so you don't want to do that. Oh, and lastly, because we're state government, we want some money, so include the fee. Yeah, we're funny about that. So that's really what a complete package looks like. Once all of those components are in, we look at them, the registration number gets issued, and you're on your merry way. Couple of things about applications. Please review it before you send it in. Make sure you signed it. If you're sending a check, make sure you sign the check. Make sure the dollar amount and the written amount matches. Any of those things missing is going to just delay the processing of your application. Did you put a photo in there? Are your transcripts with it? Or are they going to be sent later? That's fine to send it without transcripts. Did you do your live scan? You're required to get a criminal background clearance from us before I can issue a registration to you. So make sure that you do that. And you can do that anytime. They'll send the prints once your file is created. Everything uploads and transfers into your file that we have in our database. So those can be done anytime. I highly, highly, highly recommend, strongly suggest, and I'm just going to tell you, make a copy of all the documents you send into the board. On occasion, something happens with the mail and those things get lost. And you have to reproduce all of that. That is devastating, especially when you just graduated, you have that excitement, you're ready to begin the pathway to your career. And to hear us say, we never got it, is devastating. So make a copy of everything. And just make that a standard practice until you're licensed. Everything you're gonna send to us, copy it, keep it in a file. That way you have it if we have to recreate. Generally, by and large, we don't take copies of your materials, but in that situation, if you've mailed it, and we haven't gotten it, then I would be open to accepting copies. I would be, but generally we don't. Yes?
Do you recommend we send it certified?
Next step, yes. I would recommend consider sending that any method that allows you to track delivery to our office. Mm-hmm. That can be FedEx, UPS, priority mail, that can be UPS, any of any of those. Lastly, what you can do, if you don't want to go to that extent, you can include a self-addressed stamped postcard. We'll date stamp it and it'll go right back out the mail, and that'll let you know that we got your application. Another big clue is if your check is cash. That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. So we'll do that. So that's especially for those of you that are graduating here in another few weeks. We get about 4,000 to 5,000 applications from graduates a year from social workers, marriage and family therapists, and professional clinical counselors. May, June, and July, we have what I call an avalanche of applications. So, at that time of year, I highly, highly recommend that you send it so you can track it. So if it gets lost or misdelivered, then you can tell me that, and I can work with you. Absent that, you're at square one. You may be required to complete some additional coursework. Don't have to complete it prior to the issuance of your registration, but you will in order to apply and qualify for the clinical exam. If these courses are not included in your degree program, these are the things you're going to need to complete. So child abuse and reporting, I need 7 hours. Human sexuality, 10 hours. Alcoholism and substance abuse, chemical substance abuse dependency, you need 15 hours of that. Spousal or partner abuse assessment, detection intervention, 15 hours, and then aging and long-term care, 10 hours. All of that can be completed through CE. You don't need to go back to school and take those courses. CE works. So you have your registration. Woohoo! You can work. Yay! Alrighty, so what do you need? You need 2 years of supervised post-master degree experience. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. You need, right now, 3,200 supervised work experience hours. If Assembly Bill 93, which we've sponsored, is signed by the governor this year, you will only need 3,000 hours. Yoo-hoo. Yeah, 2,000 hours, you need to be doing the clinical work that you are being trained to do. That's diagnosing, assessing, treatment plans, psychotherapy, counseling, 2,000 hours, because that's what your clinical license allows you to do. 1,200 hours can be in anything else. It could be in events such as this. It could be client center advocacy. You're trying to find the resources that your client needs to live within their community. All of that's fine, provided your supervisor approves them. That's the only caveat. If your supervisor's willing to sign off on that 6 hours Saturday that you went to a conference that talked about just general clinical social work, that's fine with us. I will say that of those 2,000 hours, the clinical, and of the 1,200 hours right now that you need, 1,700 hours have to be supervised by a licensed social worker. Everything else can be under another qualified supervisor. So for right now, we'll leave it at 3,200 hours. 1,700 of those hours have to be under a licensed clinical social worker. The remaining hours can be under somebody else that's licensed. You must have 104 weeks of supervision. The math on that is 2 years. 2 years. You have 103 weeks and you apply, we're gonna say you're deficient, you need 1 more week. That's the way that works. 52 of those weeks have to be individual supervision, the one-on-one, okay? Gotta have that. If you wanna count those experience hours towards qualifying for the clinical exam, you have to have an hour of direct supervisor contact in any week that you claim work experience hours. And just backing up to the 52 weeks, 13 of those weeks have to be under a licensed clinical social worker. And you might be wondering why that's so specific. It's this, when the law went into effect, it was thought that only licensed social workers are going to be able to properly train you. Because while you all sort of do the same thing, there's this 3 different circles of licensure and you intersect, each discipline has a different perspective towards their license and how you practice. And so that is really the reason we specify how many weeks have to be under a clinical social worker that's licensed. You can have group supervision, so that's where you and 7 of your peers sit in a room with a licensed clinical supervisor and do some case discussion. You may not, right now the law prohibits more than 8 individuals in that room total. Group supervision is defined as 2 hours. That's a good way to network. That's a good way to engage in peer discussion, toss ideas around, get a sense of how everyone else is addressing maybe common issues that you might be seeing with your clients. That's a beneficial environment for you. For every 10 client contact hours you have a week, you need 1 hour group, or you need a session, 1 hour of individual supervision, and then 2 hours a group. So you can have either A or B. What if you saw 11 clients, you have 11 hours? You need an additional unit of supervision. And it can either be group or it can be individual. But the ratio is supervision, group or individual, 10 hours. After that, after 10 hours, then I need another one. Another unit of supervision. And the maximum amount of hours that we are going to allow you to claim per week is 40. So I suspect in practice you might work more than 40 hours a week. But for now, we're going to temper that. Qualified supervisor, who are they? So they are licensed clinical social workers, licensed marriage and family therapists, licensed professional clinical counselors. We require all of those individuals to be licensed in California or another state for 2 years. They must hold a valid and unrestricted California license. That means they can't be on probation with us. That means it can't be delinquent. That means it can't be retired. they have to have an active, valid license with us. And these individuals need to complete a 15-hour supervision course. You can be supervised by a licensed psychologist or a psychiatrist. For them, the requirements are just a tad different. 2 years licensed in California or another state, and again, the unrestricted and valid license. So when you are selecting your supervisor or you're thinking about your supervisor, take 2 minutes, Google them, look them up on the web. I mean, you can check any of our licensees on our website through the license verification lookup. It'll give you an issue date and an expiration date. It should concern you if someone wants to supervise you and you pull up their license and it's delinquent. Because if that license is delinquent and you're gaining hours, we disallow those. And that's extremely disheartening. I've had applicants come to me, all their hours under one person, and for, I would say, maybe a year and a half, the supervisor wasn't licensed. Yeah. Here you are, you thought you got to the finish line. I'm done, I'm ready to go to that test, I'm prepared, mentally I'm there, and then I'm telling you, can't take those hours. Cannot take those hours. So this is where you, as new registrants, current registrants, really need to be engaged in your supervision. This is a partnership. And you, just as much as they check you, you need to check them. And this is a surefire way of making sure that your hours are gonna count. If they're on probation, they can't supervise you. I don't care what they tell you, being on probation prohibits them from supervising. So those are just 2 things, those are 2 things that will give you great angst and heartburn if it occurs. So where are your forms? Again, we give them to you on our website. So there, like I said before, bbs.ca.gov. This should be your best friend, this website. This, you need to hook up into that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. That is going to be your best source of information. It's where all your forms are located. Some of the forms you're going to need is your responsibility statement for supervisors. Your supervisor signs this. This is where your supervisor provides their license number and says, you know, under penalty of perjury, that they understand what it takes to supervise you. They understand all the laws applicable to your profession, and they're on board. Complete a supervisory plan. That's the other form that's up there. And you need one for each setting that you work in. Each one. And you and your supervisor will complete the form. And this is where, again, engage in that process. You know, what do you want to learn? What can they offer? What are your goals? What do you want to be more proficient at? That's what this plan is for. And then periodically go back when you're meeting with your supervisor, discuss it. How am I doing? What did you think of my, my skills during that session with client A? Ask them. It's an interactive process. It should not be a situation where you show up at the end of your term and go, here, sign my forms. He says, fine, and that's it. That you are being developed as a clinical social worker. Embrace that process. So your verification form, this is where you're going to log all your hours. This is the form where you're going to put all your hours, your supervisor signs it. Some of you have probably heard of Track Your Hours. Really nice tool. Really, really, really nice tool. If you want to use it, go for it. But understand at the end of the day, ultimately, we decide after totaling up the hours if you have enough hours. So that's my 2 cents on Track Your Hours. The other thing I will tell you is even after you submit your application to take the clinical exam with all your hours, keep working. Because there are those times when someone is a few hours short. That will, again, cause you great heartburn and angst, anxiety. You're going to feel like you need therapy every other day. But if you've been working and you've still got your supervision, it is nothing more than logging those hours out and sending in additional paperwork. That's it. No problem. But don't stop collecting your hours. That's really, really important. I mean, yes, you hit the 32, but if you got 35, that's great, because then if we're short, it's easy to fulfill.
Yes.
You're ready for the exam. Woohoo! Oh, no, this is the law and ethics, I'm sorry. So, ASW's, new to you is the California Law and Ethics exam. You have to take it, and hear my words, take it the first year of receiving your registration. You don't have to pass it, you have to take it. Okay? So now that's, how do you get into that exam? Again, you go to our website, you download the application, and you complete the request for initial California Law and Ethics exam. And it's paper, and with every state agency, when you send paper, you gotta send money. So it's $100 for the exam. You can submit that at the same time that you submit for your registration for ASW. You can send that at the same time, or you can wait. But you do have to take it within that first year of getting your registration. So once your application is processed, you have your registration, you can contact the testing vendor, PSI, or they'll contact you. One way to know if you haven't gotten the email from PSI, a pretty good sign that you're already over at the testing vendor and eligible to schedule your exam is if you check your bank and your check was cashed. That's a good one. Once you've passed the exam, you're done. Don't ever have to take it again. That's good. Check that box that you've completed one of 2 exams for licensure. And I'll talk a little bit about this exam. This exam is designed primarily to test a graduate's knowledge of the law and ethics pertaining to their profession upon graduation, not after a couple of years of practice or internship. It's really bare bones basics like you don't sleep with your clients, that kind of thing. You don't engage in fraudulent billing, those kinds of things. So everybody kind of was having a lot of anxiety about this exam because it really is a new way of doing things here in California. Previously, you had to wait till you got all your hours before you entered the exam cycle. We've switched it up a bit, this for a couple of reasons. You were all going out in the field. I had no clue that you even knew just the bare basics. So that's not good for consumer protection, which is what we're about at the BBS generally. That's one of our mandates. The other is, advocating and for you guys. There's a balance. So what I tell people when they think about this exam, yes, if it makes you feel better to go to a test prep company, go ahead. We don't recommend it. I don't know, they don't have access to my exam. They don't have access to my questions. They might tell you they do, and if they do, they're stealing them, and that's a whole other conversation. But you know what you know. Your school has prepared you well. They've given you the laws. They've told you about ethical practice in your practicum. Rely on that. Rely on that. You're not going to need anything more than that. We're not going to hit you with any kind of question that requires you to be in an internship for 2 or 3 years down the road. It's all, what do you know when you came out of school? So, and I'll tell you that what it supports that is when you look at our pass rates. Our pass rates are in the high 70s. About 70% of you coming through the first time, even a little higher, it's probably close to 80. Coming the first time through, you pass. Done. Easy peasy. For those that had a lot of test anxiety and weren't that successful, when they come back the second time, they pass. So it's not a hard exam. So, okay, so you've passed that at the law and ethics. You can check that box. You don't have to think about it again. Testing accommodations. So submit it at the same time. Don't piecemeal everything. Again, it's on our website, the forms, if you have any questions about what you need to do. Later, if you want, I'll give you my contact information. I have a few business cards if you want to take it. Take those. You can email me. I'm pretty good about getting back to people, or if I'm like swamped, then I will send it to staff and they'll respond to you on my behalf, but we will respond, despite the rumors. Candidates who are not successful, what do you do? Okay, well, you have a minute to kind of console yourself, get bummed out about it, and then regroup and submit a request for reexamination. Again, it's $100, and paper, and you have to wait 90 days. When do you take the 12-hour law and ethics, requirement if you haven't been successful? So let's say your first year you've gone through the cycle of testing, you still can't get by that exam. I need you to complete a 12-hour law and ethics course, send me a copy of that certificate with your first re-examination application after your renewal. So let's say I've spent all, from last April to this April, I've been testing, I still can't get past that exam. But I want to take it after, maybe I want to take it in May or June. I can't until I take a 12-hour law and ethics course. So I'll take the course, I will submit it with my reapplication. That's when you take it. Yeah. So now you have your hours, you're ready to submit them, you're ready to go. What do? You again go to our forms and pubs, and again it's paper, and again it's money. You will submit all your hours. You'll submit the application for the licensure exam. It's on our website. You'll get notified from us. It says, yes, congratulations, you're approved to take the clinical exam. Your next step is then to go to the ASWB website and follow their process to register to take the exam, and then they want money too. No way of getting around that. But the perk is all 50 states use this exam. So while you love California right now that you may have to move to another state, this is going to make moving between states a lot easier. You've passed. You get notification you passed your clinical exam through ASWB. You're so excited. You're ready to go. You can practice. I need more paper, I need more money. That form is on our website. Just because you pass the exam does not make you automatically licensed as a social worker. The good news is on this one, this is typically prorated. It's really rare that a newly licensed social worker has to pay the full fare. And then at that point I would say congratulations, you're a social worker, well done. So, we talked about your first registration. It's good for 5, you can renew it 5 times. So 6 years total. That's great. If you're not finished gaining your hours, maybe you had life interrupted you had a baby, or you decided to take a break because you weren't sure what you were going to do, and you need to gain more hours, that's totally fine. That's all acceptable. You can get a subsequent registration. But as I talked about earlier, if you haven't passed the California Law and Ethics exam, you can't have one of those. So that's the first 6-year rule. The second 6-year rule is that we will not accept hours older than 6 years from the date you submit your application to take that last exam. So if I submitted an application in June 1st, 2017, I will take all hours earned between June 1st, 2011 and up to June 1st, 2017. Anything older than June 1st, 2011, I can't take. So that's where the second 6-year rule comes into play. And those are the only 2 6-year rules that we have. We don't say you need to finish your school in 6 years. I don't say that you have to take your tests within 6 years after your registration is issued. It's your registration, you can have it for 6 years. When you get ready to apply for the clinical exam, I'll take 6 years worth of hours. So sometimes folks had other life experiences. We call those prior criminal convictions. I would say, so here's the deal. We get it. Mistakes happen. You have to disclose it. There are attorneys out there, because you worked really hard to get it expunged, attorneys will tell you you don't have to disclose it. That's true for a job application. It's not true for California licensure in any arena. So you are required to disclose it. So take a deep breath, download the background statement form, and fill it out. Be honest. Be honest about those events. Because what we do is we get the police report too. You're probably going to provide us the police report and the court documents. We read all of that stuff. We read all of it. And it's going to get you a disfavorable review from us if you're not honest. I understand embarrassment, I understand you want to put it in the past, and, you know, you're a different person, but just be forthright. I've had people who were convicted of petty theft who actually told me that it wasn't them, it was their sister. Well, sorry, I don't know how your sister shares your fingerprints. So, and that's the thing, if you don't tell me about it, because you think that it's expunged and I don't need to know about it, when we run your fingerprints, it shows up. It does tell me you got it expunged, but it shows up. And so now you have technically misled us. And that's an eye-opener. So I get it. It's college years, we do interesting things, we make poor decisions at one point or another. Just be honest. What I want to know is, what have you done since that event? What are you doing to make sure that those events never repeat? And, you know, just be honest. If you've had a recent DUI within probably 5 years of applying to us, you are probably going to be denied, depending on how high your blood alcohol level was. But does that mean it's the end of the world? No. You can appeal the decision, and then most likely you'll end up on probation with specific terms and conditions. Not cheap, but you can gain hours. You can still continue in the process. But the good news is, once you finish probation, your license is unrestricted, hours count, life is grand. If you have one of those prior life situations, you will not get a registration from us until that background clearance occurs. That's probably going to be anywhere from 90 to 120 days after your friend who didn't have one got his registration or her registration. We look at things on a case-by-case basis, and our focus is on consumer protection. If you show up in our office with a BAC 2 years ago of 0.24, I'm a little concerned. So those are kinds of things. The highest one I think I've seen is 0.37. You should be dead at 4. You should have been dead at 3.7. I don't know. So what does that do? I mean, you guys are clinicians. What's that tell you? Somebody's got an issue with alcohol. That relationship is not healthy. As I said before, many people come with a prior conviction that maybe happened 10 years ago. Maybe you're a teenager in the mall and you and your friends decided it'd be really cool to steal a CD. That peer pressure, lapse of judgment, the executive function in the brain's not quite turned on. We get that. People like that go through, we look at it, we clear it right away. It might take a few weeks to clear that. But at any rate, I have a lot of people who have old DUIs that go through, drug abuse. We get concerned with recent events. We get concerned when we see patterns of behavior, those kinds of things. And because you're in a very vulnerable setting with these clients. There's nobody right there directly watching over you, and you're treating an extremely vulnerable population. So it's our job as a regulatory agency to make sure that you're safe to go deliver those services. So some people get through, some people are denied, and then we enter negotiations to discuss a probation license. As an ASW, you have some responsibilities besides graduating and making some applications and gaining your hours. You need to renew your registration every year. Highly recommend you renew early. You don't want to lapse in registration. And we actually got with the 21st century, and you can renew online. Yeah, same place you check license verification, and we'll take credit cards there. So if your mom wants to pay for it, great. Apply and take the California Law and Ethics exam within the first year of receiving your registration. You're responsible for doing that. I'm not going to remind you, the board's not going to remind you, that's your responsibility. You must take it at least once a year. Again, I'm not going to remind you, that's you. Verify your supervisor's license status. Always, 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 because you've heard the horror stories I mentioned earlier. Get the signatures on time. Don't wait till 2 or 3 years down the road to get your weekly logs signed. And then engage in the supervision process. Talk about goals, talk about plans, talk about any concerns you have. That's what they're there for. A good supervisor is willing to listen to you and work with you. And regarding your registration, yes, We do send out courtesy notices. If you don't get it, that's not an excuse for not renewing. The other thing I will encourage you to do is, if you move, let us know about it. You're required by law to tell us within 30 days. I am required by law to send you any official notification to your address of record. If I don't know where to send it, I'm gonna send it to the last known. And again, I didn't get it, I didn't know, no excuse. So, I sound like that harsh mom, don't I? I want you to keep all of your documents, keep copies, please. I want you to be familiar with all the statutes and regulations governing your profession. You can find, every January, we put up our most recent version of the new laws for your profession. It's a big, thick book if you want the paper, but your section is only just a little bit. Just go to the LCSW section, it's pretty easy. Know your code of ethics. Be familiar with it. Make it your Bible. You can contact your professional association for those. Know any due dates, deadlines that affect your ability to test, or your application, or your registration, or your license once you get there. And the way you can stay informed about what's going on with the law that affects your registration or license is be plugged into your professional association, or sign up on the subscriber list through our website. If you pull up the homepage, on the right side, down, probably about the middle of the page, there is a link that says BBS subscriber list. Select that link. It asks you for your email. Put in your email, check everything at once, and then go back and edit what you don't want to get. What that does is every time we post something new on our website, you'll get an email blast. So, and then you can choose to look at, and if you don't want to look at everything, then you can go back in and edit your profile. But initially, do that. We also have social media, Facebook, we're there, Twitter, another one, easy to follow. But stay connected. I cannot tell you the number of people who didn't know that California law and ethics was required, and I'm still taking those calls. That's crazy. So, it's sort of a two-way street. We're here for you, we're also here for the consumers. But, you know, we can work together, it's usually better. So I would just encourage you to just be engaged. Woohoo, we're here.